The Simpsons have been a television staple since 1989, spanning over 790 episodes of theatrically released feature film, another on the way, and a ton of video game adaptations, a few of which were genuinely great. After all, The Simpsons even invented their own in-universe video games.
Bunny, Bone Stormer, go to hell!
Bart! Referenced actual video games constantly.
Gutterball!
No! And even went to a video game convention.
Video game convention!
But as a sitcom family featuring members that mostly spend their time at work, school, or hanging around the house, making a video game out of The Simpsons was no easy task, inspiring developers to create entire Simpsons games out of things that maybe appeared in an episode once, or just make up a game out of thin air, leading to some truly, truly crazy results. Here is the weird, wild history of The Simpsons video games. Don't have a cow, man. The very first Simpsons video game is a truly bizarre one. Bart vs. Space Mutants was incredibly ambitious and packed with great references to the show, even if it wasn't exactly fun to play. The title screen had a chiptune version of the theme song over an 8-bit version of the iconic TV family and their beloved couch. Fuzzy voice samples allowed Bart to say things like, "Eat my shorts,"
Eat my shorts.
and you could even prank call Mo the bartender from outside of his tavern. Cool. By the way, if you don't like the chiptune cover of the Simpsons theme song in this game, tough luck, because it plays on loop for the entirety of some of its very, very long levels. It being the first Simpsons video game that players could buy at a store and shove into their NES consoles made it a huge sales success, even though it was notoriously obtuse, punishingly difficult, featured unreliable and floaty platforming mechanics, and was frankly just plain odd for anyone who even had a passing understanding of the show.
What the hell was that?
Using They Live style glasses that Bart can wear to see invisible aliens, he's able to traverse through and also dodge visible aliens so he can spray paint purple objects around Springfield because the aliens need purple objects for intergalactic dominance or something.
Earth is now ripe for the plucking.
As a kid, Bart vs. Space Mutants was probably the first time I realized a video game based on a TV show or movie I loved could be bad. A life lesson that the NES handed out constantly during that era. But hey, we all thought it was the coolest that Bart talked and skateboarded in the game, and we were used to pushing through brutally hard video games at the time, so we all made the best of it, even if I didn't know a single kid who actually beat this game without using a cheat code device like the Game Genie.
No way!
Besides, in 1991, we all knew the real best Simpsons game wasn't in our living rooms, but at the arcade across town. Do you know how fun your video game has to be to convince a 10-year-old boy that he should play as a stay-at-home mother of 3 with a vacuum cleaner? Really fun, and luckily the Simpsons arcade game was an absolute blast, especially with 3 of your friends huddled around it after devouring 2 whole pizzas at a birthday party. The early 90s arcade scene was packed with co-op side-scrolling beat-em-up games based on things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the X-Men, and The Simpsons fit right in, ready and eager to devour your arcade tokens. Not only was The Simpsons arcade absolutely gorgeous thanks to the brilliant artists and game developers at Konami, but it was also incredibly funny and packed with obvious and esoteric references to the show, even if its plot, rescue Maggie from Smithers because she thinks a stolen diamond is a pacifier, didn't make much sense. Who cares? It was a great excuse to send the entire Simpsons family into the streets together to beat the crap out of bad, poorly dressed henchmen, zombies, bears, giant Krusty the Clown balloons, whatever else the game decides to chuck at you. Unfortunately, you can't purchase this game and play it on modern video game platforms today, although it was ported to consoles in 2013 before being delisted for good. You can, however, spend hundreds of dollars on a recreated arcade one-up version of it, a thing I've been tempted to buy dozens of times in my life and somehow been able to resist. 34 years later, the Simpsons arcade game is still one of the best Simpsons video games ever made, and a completely kick-ass beat-em-up in its own right, and I really hope Konami decides to re-release it so more people can experience this absolute classic. Meanwhile, that same year, in my back pocket, the AA battery-devouring machine known as the Nintendo Game Boy got its own exclusive Simpsons game called Escape from Camp Deadly, and it was once again way more difficult than it had any right to be. Compared to the NES game, though, Bart's character sprite was at least more than 7 pixels tall, even if the Game Boy's limited color palette made his eyes look like he was perpetually stoned.
Ugh.
Escape from Camp Deadly, as the name suggests, is about Bart fleeing a deranged and dangerous summer camp where people throw knives and forks during cafeteria fights and guys that look like undercover cops try to beat you to death in a forest. Okay, and you thought summer school sucked. This game wasn't great by any stretch, but it was satisfying enough and also had the benefit of being a portable game you could suffer through anywhere you went, from the school bus to your own terrible summer camp if you brought your Game Boy. And if you made it to the ending, you could even see Camp Deadly get shut down and a skunk joins your family celebration because why not? Acclaim's second Simpsons NES game in the same year was Bart vs. the World, a game about Bart winning a contest that puts him on a global scavenger hunt, which is mostly just a thin excuse to drop him in international locations that have no bearing on reality, like a huge boat in China where people shoot fireworks at kids, and the North Pole's frozen river, a dream vacation of every child wearing a t-shirt and shorts. Bart vs. the World plays like much more of a standard platforming game than Space Mutants did, and the end result is a slightly better, but still not great game. But hey, at least you can turn into Bartman and fly around. There are mini games to break things up between levels. Mo the bartender tries to kill you with beers, and you can throw pies in the faces of Smithers and Mr. Burns for an uncomfortably long stretch of time. Yep, it's still going. Somehow, the fifth Simpsons game, released in 1991, Bart's House of Weirdness brings Konami back into the picture for an MS-DOS game. If you know what that means, you should schedule a colonoscopy, because you're old like me. That once again pits Bart against a bunch of stuff in Springfield that is trying to kill him. Or should I say uncool him, since the game's health bar is actually a cool meter that goes down depending on how much you get hurt. Despite being named Bart's House of Weirdness, most of the game is actually spent outside of Bart's house doing the usual Simpsons video game stuff, like fighting aliens or looking at long, awkward poses on loading screens. Overall, it's a pretty good looking game and use of the license in general, although the theme song cover here is completely unhinged, even if it's nowhere near the same level of quality as Konami's other Simpsons game that year. Also, it occasionally forces you to look at a pixel art rendition of Bart's mom shaving her armpits, and since I was forced to see that, so are you. I'm sorry. The year 1992 brought us a trio of new Simpsons games, the most unhinged of them being Bart vs. the Juggernauts, a parody of the hit late 80s, early 90s competitive strongman show American Gladiators, now set in Springfield. Oh, and it's hosted by resident surly news anchor Kent Brockman and local therapist Marvin Monroe, both of which assume no legal responsibility for the public beating that Bart is about to endure. Bart Simpson, canonically a fourth grader, takes on numerous juggernauts, hulking behemoths who want to pulverize him for cash and prizes. So yeah, exactly the kind of lawsuit factory that infamous Simpsons lawyer Lionel Hutz would have loved.
Don't you worry, I've argued in front of every judge in the state, often as a lawyer.
While the premise is deranged, the writing is genuinely witty and sharp, with all of the adults fully aware that this televised tournament is a reckless and dangerous thing to throw kids into, especially the level where Bart has to punch and jump kick a grown woman at Moe's Tavern, a dive bar full of cheering alcoholics. Oh, and that's when he's not jousting against a different grown-up to see who can push their opponent into a pit of toxic sludge down at Mr. Burns' power plant, which is exactly how the Joker once became a thing. Bart vs. the Juggernauts is essentially a minigame collection strung together loosely by cutscenes, and while the game as a whole can feel kinda hit or miss, it's a unique take on the source material, and it ends with Bart winning his very own Truckosaurus for his family to drive home with, and really, how can anyone be mad at that? After several Simpsons games starring Bart were released back-to-back with many, many more to come, stick around, it was time to send in the clowns and give Krusty his own video game.
Hi, kid!
Well, sort of. Krusty's Funhouse was technically a reskin of an Amiga game called Rat Trap that Acclaim decided to throw Krusty and some other Simpsons sprites into, sort of like how Super Mario characters took over the Japanese game Doki Doki Panic when it was released in the US as Super Mario Bros. 2. If you ever played Lemmings or the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games, you'll quickly recognize that Krusty's Funhouse plays similarly, but with a slightly darker outcome for the tiny herdlings. That's because the player has to lure them into a large machine, or they'll be smashed to bits. So probably not quite what you'd expect from a Krusty the Clown game, but at the same time, exactly the kind of thing you'd expect Krusty the Clown to do in his free time, on a weekend maybe. So hey, why not? While Krusty was dealing with diseased vermin infestations, Bart was busy tackling other potentially deadly health code violations in 1992's Bartman Meets Radioactive Man, which finally features Bart's superhero alter ego Bartman as a permanently playable character rather than a temporary power-up. Unfortunately, it's marred by the same floaty platforming that plagued the previous Acclaim Simpsons games, and while the Bartman flying levels mix up the pacing a bit, it mostly lands in the middle of that all-too-common licensed NES game ditch of way too hard and not very fun. The entirety of Bartman Meets Radioactive Man is set in locations that have nothing to do with any Simpsons episodes and feature little to no Simpsons references or characters at all. So it's not even like it's worth pushing through if you're a huge Simpsons fan. In hindsight, it's pretty crazy how much Bartman stuff was out there by 1992, considering that character didn't exactly have a huge presence on the show at the time, and I say that as someone who once successfully begged his parents to buy him a Bartman action figure. God, I love that thing. I should track one down again. The Bartman video game, not so much. On to the year 1993, where Bart Simpson is once again starring in an absolute fever dream of a Simpsons game, although this time, that's actually a deliberate choice. Bart's nightmare opens with Bart passing out face first into his homework and waking up in an imaginary hellscape where all of the pages have flown out of his bedroom window and onto a chaotic fantasy version of the streets of Springfield. While dodging obstacles with a jumping sound effect that sounds like a sick cat about to throw up, Bart must collect his missing homework pages, triggering one of several random doors that lead to even crazier nightmares. Behind one door, there's a Godzilla-inspired stage where Bart has to dodge a version of Mothra that looked like his mom, Marge-thra, I guess. Behind another, a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up style level where Bartman takes down missiles and Krusty balloons with his trusty slingshot, there's even a stage where Itchy and Scratchy try to kill Bart with hammers and bazookas, while sentient vacuum cleaners tear across the carpet. Does any of this make any sense? No, and nightmares seldom do, so hey, just roll with it and try to get an A+ as your final score so the whole family can stare in awe at your hard work and dedication, although it's not entirely clear if Bart didn't just write that grade on the paper himself. Hey, you know what? It's about time that Itchy and Scratchy, the Simpsons ultra-violent parody of Tom and Jerry, got their very own video game, although a side-scrolling mini-golf game was probably not exactly what most fans expected at the time. Still though, Itchy and Scratchy in Miniature Golf Madness manages to be ultra-violent, which is especially funny for a Game Boy rated E for everyone. It's Scratchy's job to whack the ball over various obstacles and into the hole while managing challenging platforming sequences and collecting weapons he can use to blow up, maim, and straight up chop in half his resident nuisance animal, Itchy, who repeatedly makes it a point to annoy and harm him. Somehow, this is all Krusty's fault for reasons that are never clearly explained and ultimately don't matter because the end result was unique, especially when you consider your typical mini-golf game at the time didn't involve throwing knives or hitting a mouse so hard his eyeballs fly off of his face and into the 18th hole. Okay, I promise this is the last Acclaim-developed Simpsons game for the original Nintendo Game Boy, I swear. 1994 was when the Simpsons were right in the middle of their peak of popularity, so obviously, the best place to set the next video game starring 90s cool kid Bart Simpson was the 1700s royalty-free British fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk. Wait, what? Acclaim, a publisher clearly set on riding the Simpsons license until the wagon wheels fell off, once again gave Bart a short and floaty platforming game for the Nintendo Game Boy, this time a retelling of the classic story of a poor kid selling his family's cow to make money and then spending that money on a magical bean that grows into a giant beanstalk, leading to a giant's castle. Okay, so there's no logical explanation for why any Simpson would be doing any of this stuff, unless some 90s video game executive heard Bart's, off-repeated "don't have a cow man" line and decided that a fable about a family selling their cow was a perfect fit. That's the best that I can do here. Let me know if you've got a better idea why this game exists.
Don't have a cow.
Don't have a cow in the third. Put a deuce on him.
Bart and the Beanstalk is once again a strange fit for the license, and outside of the giant looking like Homer and a cloud boss that you fight that looks like Mr. Burns, there's not actually much here for Simpsons fans, although it does finally bring closure to Acclaim's prolific and peculiar run of Game Boy exclusive Simpsons games. Rest in peace. Thank you for your service, Acclaim. You are no longer needed here.
Curse you, magic beans!
Oh, stop blaming the beans.
It doesn't really get any more 1990s than Homer voice actor Dan Castellaneta yelling "Virtual Bart" over the intro of a 16-bit video game.
Virtual Bart!
Okay, so in 1994, virtual reality seemed like the coolest concept in the world, even if nobody really knew what it meant, and it was a label thrown around for anything from video games to just being on the internet and doing virtual stuff, like looking at a website.
Man, there's too many garbage files. I need more time.
The idea of putting on a futuristic helmet or special glasses and being suddenly whisked away to a simulated 3D world was every kid's dream, and with early VR experiences starting to trickle out in arcades and movies like Demolition Man and The Lawnmower Man showing their various uses, I guess you could call them.
What do you say we just do it the old-fashioned way?
Ew, disgusting.
Combining VR and Bart Simpson made a ton of sense, even if you were a marketing guy just trying to get a kid to buy a video game. That said, Virtual Bart is mostly a randomized minigame collection where Bart does various things every kid thought was cool, like water sliding and dirt bike riding, throwing eggs at the teachers, and turning into a pig and escaping a canned ham factory. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Cool stuff that kids love. Virtual stuff. Cool. Back for another ultra-violent action platforming game, this time without any pesky mini-golf to get in the way. 1995's The Itchy and Scratchy game lets you play as Itchy to exact revenge on that horrible cat who is always trying to kill you. The Itchy and Scratchy game feels like someone said, what if we made a much slower and much worse Sonic the Hedgehog game, but with horrendous controls and level design, and we gave it a soundtrack that sounded like people hitting loose floorboards with hammers the whole time. That would suck, right? Who cares? Kids won't know it sucks, just ship it. Yeah, well, you know what? We did know. We knew then, we know now, and this game was so bad that nobody made another Itchy and Scratchy game for nearly 15 years after this. More on that one in a sec. But until then, it's time we say goodbye to Acclaim's seemingly endless run of mostly not great Simpsons video games and kick the license over to a bunch of new publishers to see what happens. Thank you for your service once again, Acclaim. You may now go away for real. Seriously. Stop making Simpsons games.
Already dead.
Watching The Simpsons cartoons is great, but have you ever wanted to make your own? Well, it turns out it's actually really hard, but still very funny if you got silly, creative, or weird enough with it, which was pretty much a given in The Simpsons Cartoon Studio for PC and Mac. Hot off the heels of the build-your-own cartoon programs like Spider-Man Cartoon Maker and Felix the Cat's Cartoon Toolbox, The Simpsons Cartoon Studio lets you layer tons of different characters, effects, and sounds over various Simpsons settings to create hilarious and surrealist short films. It's not really a game in that it doesn't have a defined ending or scoring system, since creative expression is kind of the whole point, but it still manages to yield some very fun and stupid results. And also, I'm completely convinced that several movie directors working today cut their teeth by editing short films in these 90s PC animation programs based on children's cartoons. That's my theory, and I have no proof.
Get me Steven Spielberg.
He's unavailable.
Then get me his non-union Mexican equivalent.
The year is 1997, and while The Simpsons' grip on pop culture is starting to loosen a bit, excitement over the nebulous concept of all things virtual continues to climb, giving us the best-looking Simpsons game that had been released up until that time. Virtual Springfield decided to make The Simpsons' hometown the main character, allowing players to explore it through a device the game calls a virtual reality view thingy, which allows a first-person view of various Simpsons characters, settings, and gags simply by pointing and clicking around. But by far, The greatest thing that Virtual Springfield gave the world is the promotional contest tied to it, where one lucky winner would become the owner of a real-life recreation of the Simpsons house built in Henderson, Nevada. Not only did they actually build the iconic house inside and out, but the contest winner refused the prize, accepting cash instead, and the local HOA hated its vibrant colors and decorations for looking out of place in the neighborhood. It got stripped of all of its Simpsons charm and repainted to much more muted beiges and browns, none of which has stopped diehard Simpsons fans from traveling from around the world to visit it to this day. That story completely blew my mind, so thank you to Virtual Springfield and the adjacent Simpsons contest happening that year for bringing it all to life. I cannot believe I know that now.
Good heavens! This is a palace! How in the world can you afford to live in a house like this, Simpson?
I don't know. Don't ask me how the economy works.
Oh hey, welcome to the year 2000. You successfully survived the Y2K bug hysteria, and your reward is a trackball arcade bowling game starring The Simpsons. It's a bit odd that it took 9 years of Simpsons video games to get one based on bowling, considering how much of a presence bowling has on the show, in Homer's life specifically, much to Marge's chagrin.
Happy birthday to you!
And while seeing low poly 3D modeled Simpsons characters is slightly disturbing, the game itself is fun enough. Like the original Konami Simpsons arcade game, The Simpsons Bowling lives on in the recreated arcade 1-up Simpsons cabinet, which I'm once again trying to talk myself out of buying, so if you're eager to track one down or you get lucky enough to find one in the game room of a real bowling alley out there, you can experience it all over again.
You can do it, Otto! You can do it, Otto! Help each other out! That'll be our motto!
Finally, PlayStation owners get their first Simpsons game ever, and it's a wrestling simulator. Alright. If you thought the 3D graphics in Simpsons Bowling were weird, get a look at this thing.
Wah! I'm seeing clowns! Must kill clowns!
Yikes. At the time, 3D wrestling games like WWF SmackDown and No Mercy were huge hits, while Simpsons' popularity and general episode quality definitely started to dip a little bit, so this may have been some Hail Mary hopeful situation for the franchise. Players and critics alike almost universally hated this game, with IGN calling it the most horrific demolition of a license ever. Wow. But hey, you get to punch Ned Flanders in the face, so at least Homer probably loved it.
To find Flanders, I just have to think like Flanders. I'm a big four-eyed lame-o, and I wear the same stupid sweater every day in the Springfield River!
Oh, you thought we were done with Game Boy Simpsons games developed by a video game publisher that once filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy only to return years later when their company trademarks were purchased and repurposed by investment groups? Well, THQ says, hold my Duff beer. The Simpsons Night of the Living Treehouse of Horror is a Game Boy Color action platformer inspired by the Simpsons tradition of annual spooky Halloween time episodes, and somehow it's actually a pretty fun game and solid proof that The Simpsons worked better as pixel art in the early 2000s. And hey, you can even play as Robot Homer as a nod to The Simpsons' 1991 Frankenstein meets Wizard of Oz parody, If I Only Had a Brain.
Run, sir! Quit playing those stupid video games, boy.
In 2001, we finally got a Simpsons driving simulator, or what if they made a whole video game out of that part in the Simpsons show intro where Homer drives recklessly around Springfield. The Simpsons Road Rage is basically The Simpsons meets Crazy Taxi, a comparison that Sega found so striking that they actually sued EA and Fox over it before settling out of court. Developer Radical Entertainment would go on to make a much better game where you wreak havoc and destruction around Springfield a few years later, but if you could push past the frequent loading screens and unreliable hit detection, The Simpsons Road Rage was decent enough fun at the time.
That's the spicy meatball!
That was fast. You ever considered working as a wheelman?
Once again, a bit behind the times on video game trend chasing, the Simpsons Skateboarding in 2002 attempted to take on the 4 Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games that had already been released at the time, the 4th just a month earlier, and sadly, it was no contest. Despite having 9 playable characters and decent enough visuals, the gameplay was atrocious, and the Simpsons sound bites being played on repeat hundreds of times per stage were maddening enough to make you want to break a skateboard in half.
Ow, quit it.
But don't worry, things are about to get a whole lot better.
Rock the Casbah, dude.
You've met the requirement.
The year was 2003, and if you were playing video games at the time, you might not have realized it, but you're about to get what is arguably the greatest Simpsons game of all time. Around the same time, the GTA franchise was firing on all cylinders with Grand Theft Auto Vice City and the soon-to-be-released GTA San Andreas, so the creators of The Simpsons Road Rage decided to expand many of the foundations that they had previously built and created in The Simpsons Hit and Run. Hit and Run was a GTA-inspired open-world Simpsons game that let you steal cars, cause chaos, and explore Springfield to unlock collectibles and meet and/or beat all of your favorite Simpsons characters.
Hey, I know you. You're in my dumb guy support group.
This combination of GTA and The Simpsons went together like peanut butter and chocolate, and while it totally sucks that a sequel for this game was pitched, planned, and then ultimately canceled, Hit and Run totally holds up today and has a passionate and dedicated speedrunning community collaborating to finish it as fast as humanly possible over and over again. Seriously, track this game down and play it. It rules.
Woohoo! All right!
This is one weird place.
Spider Pig does whatever a Spider Pig does.
When The Simpsons movie arrived in theaters in 2007, Electronic Arts published a pair of games to ride off the hopeful success of the film, banking on nostalgia from longtime fans and newcomers alike. The first Simpsons movie tie-in game was Minutes to Meltdown, a top-down mobile game played in 30-minute sessions, the same length of time it takes to watch an episode of The Simpsons with commercials. The art style is great, looking like a long-lost isometric Sega Genesis Simpsons game, once again proving that The Simpsons often work well in pixel art, but with only 3 levels and some very basic puzzles, most fans bounced off this one pretty quickly. Either way, Minutes to Meltdown is officially in the abandonware category, as you can no longer legally purchase it or play it, but hey, at least now you know it once existed.
Every time I learn something new, it pushes some old stuff out of my brain. Remember when I took that home winemaking course and I forgot how to drive?
That's because you were drunk.
Meanwhile, the Simpsons game was a much bigger and more ambitious swing, launching on nearly every console and handheld in 2007 and giving The Simpsons a big, fun action platformer to coincide with the release of the film. The game is broken up into 16 episodes, with each family member appearing as a playable character with a specific set of goals. The writing was fantastic and funny thanks to the direct contributions of The Simpsons writing staff. The cel-shaded polygonal art style was a perfect fit, and each stage was packed with tons of nods to gaming, along with video game Easter eggs like references to Grand Theft Auto, The Sims creator Will Wright, Frogger, Space Invaders, and more. Unfortunately, the camera was a bit hard to control and the overall game length left much to be desired. A sequel was originally planned but ultimately scrapped, so here's hoping we see something new when the second Simpsons movie comes out in 2027, 20 years after the release of the first film.
The Simpsons game. This is so weird. The only Simpsons game I can think of is the one where we all pretend Dad isn't an alcoholic.
1 year later, EA Games published another isometric pixel art Simpsons game for mobile phones called Itchy and Scratchy Land, which despite its title doesn't actually let you play as Itchy or Scratchy. Instead, the Simpsons family does their best to survive their local theme park, which is now overrun with deadly Itchy and Scratchy robots, along with a plethora of traps and hazards designed to kill them. While managing to be a bit deeper than EA's previous mobile Simpsons game, it's still a fairly simplistic offering that you also can't download on your phone these days, since support ended for it a long time ago. So just go watch the episode it's based on.
See all that stuff in there, Homer? That's why your robot never worked.
Remember the 1991 Simpsons arcade game I spent several minutes praising near the start of this video? You should. Well, in 2009, EA made a mobile exclusive tribute to it, or really, a spiritual successor that was missing a lot of spirit. EA's take on the Simpsons arcade was still a side-scrolling beat-em-up where players pulverized various goons and Simpsons characters across Springfield, but with no local multiplayer and only Homer featured as a playable character, it missed out on much of what made the original so much fun. Still, since Konami never, and still hasn't, ported the original arcade game to mobile, it was fun having a new take on it on the go, even if it wasn't nearly as great.
This happy little elf game is so stupid. You tap and wait and tap and wait. And for what? So your pretend town can have more pretend flowers than your pretend friends?
As you've seen by now, numerous Simpsons games let you explore Springfield, but The Simpsons Tapped Out lets you design and build it yourself to your own liking, and the results were shockingly fun for a mobile game, even if it was occasionally plagued by the usual mobile game microtransaction bullshit.
Kaboom! So that's where buildings come from.
Checking in daily to unlock new buildings, reorganize your town layout, and go through your large pile of Simpsons villager requests was an obsession of mine while waiting for a bus or train to arrive on my morning commute, so much so that I once figured out how to build gigantic 8-bit Nintendo sprites from Super Mario and The Legend of Zelda, made entirely out of Simpsons washing machines, bushes, and mailboxes. I actually did this for real. Sadly, after 12 years of steady updates and content drops, the game's support officially ended recently, and it's been delisted from mobile stores since then, meaning it's kind of tricky if you want to try and play it for the first time this year. But man, when it was at its best, it was really cool to carry around my own personal version of Springfield in my pocket.
I spent $1,000? Oh well, I'll just tell them that my kid did it and get a refund.
Between Amiibo, Skylanders, and more, the toys-to-life genre of real-life physical collectibles you could scan into digital games were all the craze in 2015, and LEGO decided to get in on it in a big way. LEGO Dimensions played like your typical LEGO game at the time, combining co-op action platforming and light puzzles, but instead of focusing on one franchise, they decided to combine tons of them, including the Ghostbusters, DC Comics, the Goonies, Beetlejuice, and of course, The Simpsons. Real-life LEGO sets corresponding to each franchise could be purchased, built, and scanned into the game to unlock in-game characters and rewards, giving us a trio of Simpsons fun packs featuring Homer, Bart, and Krusty. You probably already guessed this, but this meant absolute hell for both collectors and anyone trying to 100% the game, since it required the purchase of tons of different LEGO sets to complete it all. By 2017, the toys-to-life genre was completely oversaturated, sales fell short for LEGO Dimensions, and future editions were canceled. Still, it's pretty cool that this is the only Simpsons game on this list to give us new toys to go with it, and you can still regularly find them for pretty cheap these days in case you've always wanted a tiny LEGO Homer car to put on your shelf. And there you have it, a complete history of every Simpsons video game ever, so far at least, spanning several decades, consoles, handhelds, PC, and more. But with The Simpsons getting added to the immensely popular multiplayer game Fortnite, the show still ongoing with no plans to stop, and a Simpsons movie sequel coming in 2027, I have a feeling we'll be getting new Simpsons games for years to come. At least I hope so. So what's your favorite Simpsons game of all time? Do you have a personal memory of getting a Simpsons game and bringing it home and playing it for the first time? Let me know in the comments below, and for all things video games, Simpsons or otherwise, stick with IGN.